So I think you gents have covered quite a lot of ground. I think there is probably quite a lot of personal animus driving this conflict. And perhaps Dion George thinks that he has nothing really to lose by going for the nuclear option here. I mean, I also recall seeing that he had actually laid a complaint against the public protector, which I thought was quite an extraordinary thing to do. This was before his resignation. So clearly, that relationship internally is totally broken down. And look, I think I agree with your sentiments expressed earlier, Martin. That uh, I think you really need quite a light touch management of environmental affairs. I think there are. He talks about the hunting lobbies and things like that, but there's also a very big and powerful green lobby, which is imposing a very sophisticated renewable energy agenda onto South Africa, and this is originated from Europe and other places like that. So there's a lot going on there, and probably a lot of policy decisions that Dion George took, which I would have disagreed with. Um, but as Ayanda was saying, I think Dion George does raise some interesting questions. So he doesn't wholly condemn the formation of the GNU, and he says that he supported the formation of the GNU and uh, stressed that it needed to be managed with a lot of judiciousness and integrity, which he accuses Steenhuisen of lacking. He also accuses Steenhuisen of muzzling the DA parliamentary caucus into silence on issues crucial to South Africa, including black economic empowerment, the ANC's ongoing collusion with authoritarian governments against our vital allies like the United States. He also says the DA supported all the budgets that the ANC submitted, including the DTIC. I'm quoting him now, that continues to discriminate against millions of South Africans, and the Departments of International Relations and Cooperation that colludes with the enemies of the democracies around the world. And then he goes on to say that he can't support a government that perpetuates race laws. So if you take those words in isolation, you could interpret that as a very principled liberal opposition to the DA's ongoing participation in the GNU. But I think perhaps Dion George is trying to square the circle there. I mean, if he hadn't have had this fallout with Steenhuisen, he would have continued happily with his work at the Department of Environment and Fisheries and Forestry. But perhaps these issues that he's raising are really fundamental contradictions that exist within the GNU. It's not necessarily because of Steenhuisen per se, but when you lump these two parties together in this awkward embrace, you're going to get these contradictions emerging. And yeah, I mean, I think in support of the co-option argument, I mean, particularly in international affairs, you may recall the fallout with Emma Powell last year, as well as when Andrew Whitfield was sacked by the president on quite spurious grounds. And that was, I think, an example of the DA kind of folding to some pretty serious pressure from Durka, and there's, I think, a lot of evidence to suggest that there's some very sophisticated interests that have captured Durko, and it is a very powerful internal lobby within the government. And clearly, South Africa's foreign policy position is not serving the interests of all South Africans, let alone DA voters. And I think that is a very pertinent issue, is how is this foreign policy posture allowed to continue? And yeah, I get it. You can't win every battle inside the cabinet. Some issues, you got to pick your battles. But sometimes you have to go to war, and you need to be prepared to fight for your core constituency. And maybe some DA supporters would say, well, DA voters aren't necessarily that animated by foreign affairs. But I think particularly in this year, really foreign affairs has been the defining issue. And I think there was definitely a missed opportunity in the White House in May to really stick some daggers into the ANC and to say, well, look, we do have this preponderance of race laws. Private property rights are under threat. This is a problem, Mr. President. And you can do that from a patriotic position. It is not unpatriotic to point out these very fatal policy decisions that have been taken by the ANC. So I think on balance, when you zoom out, I mean, Dion George has a point. There is a high level of co-option of the DA, and that is a problem. And I think that a lot of DA members of the cabinet and more broadly in the party would say, well, look at all these wins we're achieving. We have a balanced budget. We have Home Affairs, which is a bit more slick and more efficient. We're the good guys and we're kind of holding the line. But when you zoom out that lens, you see a lot of the really core fundamental issues are still very much led by the ANC's policy agenda and worldview. And I think we need to see some more serious pushback from the DA within the government of national unity.